Well, this morning we're going to talk a little bit about faith. Last week we talked about knowledge and wisdom. This week we're going to talk about faith. I guess definitions of words abound, yeah? You can Google anything today. I remember when we were taking a tour of Washington, D.C., we were on one of those little trams going through the city, and the guy that was driving the tram said, I've been doing this for 25, 30 years. He said, the only thing that's changed is now I have a bunch of people on the tram eager to look everything up and prove me wrong. So definitions abound. We can all look one up. Here's mine for today. I'm going to define faith as the ability to trust and believe when trust and belief defy human logic, reason, or experience. You don't have to like the definition, but that's the one I'm going to use today. It's the ability to trust and believe when trust and belief defy human logic, human reason, or human experience. And there have been times in life when we have all been faced with things that if we say, I'm going to cling to my faith in God, He's going to rescue me from this. He's going to deliver me. We've all faced times when the issue at hand was so large that people without faith would say, you're crazy. That's foolish. What are you thinking? So faith is a huge thing. I also want to say something today before we move into this discussion. We know that Paul told us in 1 Corinthians 12 that there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are varieties of service, but the same Lord. There are varieties of activities, but it's the same God who empowers them in all. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. So there are some among us this morning that have a greater ability to trust God when the adversary is at the adversary's largest. We all have faith to some measure. It takes faith to believe Christ to start with. It takes faith to get into the car and drive to the church, trusting that there won't be an accident along the way, right? We all have faith to some measure, but some people have a greater gift, a greater measure. Paul says it right here. He says it in chapter 12, verses 8 through 10. For to one is given the spirit of the utterance of wisdom, to another the utterance of knowledge, according to the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit. To another, Paul says. Paul does not say to everyone. Paul does not say that everyone in the body has the same measure of faith. He doesn't say that. He says some have a greater additional gift. And I've often found that as we move through the Christian life, that those without the gift, those without this extra measure, sometimes feel critical about themselves. They sometimes feel negligent in not being able to trust as they wish they could. Well, this is an opportunity for the person with the gift of faith to stand alongside the person who needs additional faith, because Paul said the gifts are for the common good. They're for the common good. We all have some measure of faith. We all trust something. How many of you have flown on an airplane? Come on, nice and high. How many of you have flown on an airplane? How many of you got out and examined every rivet, every bolt, every screw, checked every piece of wiring, looked at the maintenance logs? How many of you did all of that before? Yeah, what the Dennis probably has. But the rest of us, what did we trust? It's going to work, right? We trust it's going to work. It's going to work. If you've ever taken medication, not going to go too far down this road, but you probably didn't visit the factory. You probably didn't say, where did that Advil come from really? What's really in these Flintstones chewables? You probably didn't send them off to the lab to be tested. You put some degree of faith in it. How many of you have money in a bank account somewhere? Got a bank. What do you trust there? The bank is still going to be there tomorrow with your money. You're not going to show up tomorrow and find it's now a Filibertos and your money is gone. Right? You have trust in the bank. Some of us have exceptional trust in a family member or a friend. If they say they're going to do something, we don't have to follow them. And then on the converse, some of us have an absolute lack of faith. Absolute lack of faith. Impossible to trust. I hate to go on record, but I have zero trust in carnival rides. I do not care how many seals of approval they put in front of it. I have seen too many videos of the entire ride rocking back and forth when it shouldn't. People holding it down with their body weight. That's not for me, right? But we all have some level of faith to a certain extent. The gift of faith isn't talking about that. It's talking about something extra, something supernatural, something that is so huge that defies logic in such a massive way that God must empower someone with an ability to believe and trust that exceeds the normal level for a believer and a follower of God. If you have the gift of faith, I want to challenge you this morning with this. If you have the gift of faith, please, 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 don't look down on those who find it more difficult to believe. Mark chapter 9, verses 23 through 24, Jesus asks the man, do you believe? And he says, I believe. Help my unbelief. I believe. Help my unbelief. There are times when all of us believe, but we need help with our unbelief. And that's the perfect opportunity for those with the gift of faith to come alongside and say, I will stand with you here. I will stand with you here, and we will go through this together. The ones with the gift of faith are called to help the ones who have the normal level of faith for all believers. You came to faith in Christ. You believed in the Jesus that you cannot see. You trusted him for salvation. That's a huge leap of faith in and of itself. But sometimes life brings us something bigger. Let's talk about that bigger now. And it's impossible to discuss faith without looking at Hebrews chapter 11. We'll be doing that this morning, again, from the English Standard Version. If you have a version of choice, please feel free to follow along. I'm convinced, not that it matters, but I'm convinced that the letter to the Hebrews wasn't ever really a letter. I'm convinced it was a sermon. I believe it was a sermon, probably an Easter Sunday sermon. And that's why it doesn't have a name on it. Because everybody who heard the sermon saw the speaker, right? I don't have my name on my sermon notes. It's because you see me. People on YouTube, you see me. The name is in the description. You don't have to have a little poster. And the author of Hebrews is far more eloquent than I'll ever be. And says this, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Assurance, a state of certainty, a state of confidence. Faith is the ability to believe in the things that we hope for, and it's able to hold on with deep conviction to the things which we have not yet seen, the things that have not yet been fulfilled. It's the thing that keeps Noah going out there day after day after day after day to continue building the ark. When everybody else looks at that and says, there's an idiot for you. You want to see the definition of an idiot? Come with me. Right? It defies what Noah is doing, defies human logic. It defies human reason. And yet, what's Noah doing every single day? Going back out and picking up where he left off. He has assurance that God is going to keep God's promise, and he has conviction that what God said is going to happen is indeed going to happen. And therefore, no matter what you say, I'm not going to drown here. I'm going to keep building. For it, the people of old received their commendation. Right? They were given credit for exercising faith. And by faith, we understand the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. By faith, we believe, as followers of Christ, by faith, we believe that the earth and all that was in it, all that is in it, is the product of God's divine speech. Let there be. Has to be by faith, because looking around the room, we are an older congregation. But we're not that old. None of us was there. None of us was present on the first day of creation. Nobody has a first-hand account. Well, I saw it. No, by faith we trust. By faith we understand the universe is the result of God's creative hand. Assurance, we live in a state of certainty and confidence, being positive that God is going to keep his promises. And the heroes of the Old Testament were praised for this. And the author of Hebrews says, for example, and then gives us a tremendous set of examples we often call the heroes of the faith or the Faith Hall of Fame. Here we go. By faith, Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice. By faith, Abel met God's standards, not man's standards. By faith, Abel did that which was better, and it was commended to him as righteousness. By faith, Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death. This is crazy to me. This has got to be like the first missing persons report. We got this friend, Enoch. We were walking down the road one day, and we were having a conversation, and I turned, and he wasn't there. And I looked back, and he wasn't there. I went back, and he's not there. I don't know where he is. How big is a town in Enoch's day? Not a lot of places to look, right? He's just gone. He's just gone. By faith, he's just gone. People go looking, but Enoch is just gone. And then I love this statement. Without faith, it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. You know, we often make it a whole lot more complicated than that, but I think this is the bottom line. When a person comes to faith in Christ, what do you got to believe? You got to believe that Christ is real, or else you will not come to Christ. I don't believe Jesus is real, but I'm coming to him. said no one. You must believe that Jesus is real to cling to him. And you must also believe that Jesus will save you. It means you got to accept that you need saving. It means you have to accept that Jesus has saving power. And you also have to accept the fact that he's going to extend it to you. And he does. That's it. Coming to faith. Jesus is real, and he'll save me wherever I am. Whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. There's nothing else here. That's it. Believe, trust. God is real and God works. By faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen. Events as yet unseen, in reverent fear, respecting God for who God is, in reverent fear constructed an ark, saving his household. Noah's building the ark, preparing for the great flood. Let's put that in proper terms this morning. Be honest, please. Please. How many of you would believe me if I told you this morning that God is sending into Phoenix next week a blizzard? And the blizzard is going to stop all ability to move through the city. It's going to stop. People are going to freeze to death by the thousands. You need to go out today and buy snowsuits. You need to get a snowmobile, because next week in Phoenix, in August, it's going to happen. August, blizzard, Phoenix. How many of you, if I said that to you credibly with a straight face, how many of you honestly believe you'd be buying snowsuits this week? Let the record show that's none. That's the kind of weight the pastor of Calvary Church carries with the congregation. It's unbelievable. It defies logic. It defies reason. And if you went out and bought a snowsuit, you probably wouldn't tell anybody. Well, just in case, he seemed to really believe it. I can always sell it on eBay later. Ski season's coming. It's right. Finding one in Phoenix in August might be difficult. Somebody at Amazon going, why is suddenly there a spike? And, right? It defies logic. But that's where Noah finds himself. A flood is coming. What's a flood? Well, trust me, it's going to be wet for a long time. A lot of water falling from the sky. What? That's where Noah finds himself. And yet, he perseveres. He does what God has called him to do. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive an inheritance. Abram was called to go out in a world that believed in regional gods. Abram is called to believe that this God is not regional. This God is God over everything and is in control every place, not just here. And that I'm going to provide a home for you in a place you've never been, a place where you have no family, a place where you have no friends, a place where you have zero connections, but follow me, it's going to be exciting. Again, how many of you would pack up and go? It's hard. It's difficult. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise, as a foreign land, living in the tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. And I love this next statement, for he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. Abraham lived in a world filled with belief in regional gods, but he he held instead, we'll go there, to one infinite God that defied all reason, all logic. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive when she was past the age. Past the age, that's normally something you say like at the supermarket, you know. Check that. I'm not buying them. I was at the supermarket last night with my wife. She's like checking dates on, no, we don't want this one. This one's going to expire too soon. This one already has. Well, this one's good for another 2 weeks. We'll take that one. Past the age. You remember how old Sarah was when she... 90. Not 90. Now, I would take a poll in here and ask the ladies, how excited would you be to receive news that you are pregnant at 90? And if you're like 50, you got 40 years to wait. Nobody's in a hurry for that. Everybody believes that childbirth, that's for the young, right? That's nobody's signing up at 90. That's faith. Abraham's 100 years old. Should I live to see 100? You know what I don't want? I don't want you to be responsible for parenthood. I don't want to be doing that. I'm afraid that at 100, I will be past the age. Right? By faith, Abraham offered Isaac. Isaac invoked future blessings on Jacob and Esau. By faith, Jacob blessed each of the sons of Joseph. And by faith, Joseph made mention of the exodus of the Israelites and gave directions concerning his bones. When you return home, don't leave my body here. It's going to take hundreds of years. But by faith, Joseph saw it. Several generations are going to pass, but Joseph knew the people would return home. It defied logic, but he left instructions. By faith, Moses was hidden by his parents because they're not afraid of the king's edict. Moses' family had more respect for God than they had fear of human leadership. They defied reason in a world where Pharaoh was God. We're going to trust the God of Israel instead. By faith, Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. Think about that for a moment. Moses chooses to be identified with the people of God rather than live in the divine household of the Egyptian royal family where Moses may have been considered divine himself. Moses gives up a claim on his own divinity to follow the truly divine. Man, how many people can give up being treated as a god in order to follow the true God of the universe? That's a small group. That's a small group. By faith, he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. By faith, he kept the Passover and sprinkled the blood so the destroyer of the firstborn might not touch them. By faith, Moses chose the God of Israel over the gods of Egypt. By faith, the people crossed the Red Sea as on dry land. Now think about that for a moment. Do you trust enough to walk in? Even if you go with the shallow theory that says that this happened in the Sea of Reeds, which is a sound argument, right? It was more of a marsh than the Red Sea itself. Even if you hold to that idea, it's still 6 feet deep and it's still 2.5 miles across. That's an act of trust to walk through. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down. By faith, and I love this one, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient because she'd given a friendly welcome to the spies. Rahab has everything to lose by protecting the spies. And what does she gain if she turns them over? You think the government of the city would have been kind to her? You think there would have been a reward involved? You think there would have been some prestige? Hey, I found some spies over here hanging out, trying to figure out our weaknesses. Do you think that would have been met with some reward? I certainly think so. Instead, she places her trust in the guys who have nothing wandering through the wilderness. Because that's a good idea. It defies human logic and reason. And what more shall I say? What about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel, of the prophets, who through faith they conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, and put foreign armies to flight. Gideon, hiding in the recessed ground, O mighty man of valor. What mighty man of valor? I'm hiding. I don't want to be seen down here. These people did miraculous things. The writer says that women received their dead back. Some were tortured. Others suffered mocking, flogging, even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned. They were sawn in two. They were killed with the sword. Begging the question, would we pay this price? They did because of what they saw and a divinely inspired ability to cling to it, even though it might not be fulfilled in their own lifetimes. They went about destitute, afflicted, and mistreated, the scripture says, of whom the world was not worthy. Man, that's a statement. The world was not worthy of these people. Wandering about in deserts and in mountains and in dens and in caves of the earth. The world is not worthy of the faithful because the world trusts in itself. The faithful trust in God. And all of these, commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us, they should not be made perfect. The writer is saying all of these heroes of the Old Testament faith, all of them, not a single one of them saw the fulfillment of the coming of Christ. All of the things that are hinted, that are foreshadowed, that are stated in the pages of the Old Testament, promise after promise after promise after promise, they clung to, knowing that one day Messiah would come. And now we live in that age where we can see it. We know the fulfillment of Jesus. We understand the miracle of the cross. We understand the power of redemption. We understand the glory of the future promises that they saw more darkly. And the world was not worthy of them because it put its faith in itself rather than its trust in God. A problem that continues to plague us today. But they saw beyond this world. They saw into the next. They saw imperfectly, the coming of the perfect. But the gift of faith is also present in the New Testament. It's not just reserved to the heroes of the old. Through faith, Paul declared that Jesus is the Son of God. The guy going to persecute becomes the persecuted. Barnabas, by faith, believed Paul's testimony was genuine when he had every reason to be suspicious. Peter, by faith, believed that salvation was for Jews and Gentiles. By faith, Timothy sets out with Paul. And by faith, Paul and Silas remain in prison when the doors are shaken open. Faith. Faith. It is a tremendous and powerful gift. And from time to time, we all need to stand by someone who has it, because its purpose is for the good of the whole. Israel is delivered through the power of the faithful. The church is expanded through the power of the faithful. And faithful doesn't mean that you show up on time. Faithful means that you are full of faith. You can't quite put the cap on because faith is still running out over the top. So, wrapping up for today. Faith is the supernatural ability to trust God when it seems unwarranted. When David walks out to face Goliath, that's faith. Faith is a gift because it defies human reason. Everybody's standing there. What would the Vegas odds on Goliath have been? What kind of return do you think you could? I'm going to bet on the skinny kid. What do you think the odds were? Yeah, you think you'd have been a wealthy person placing a bet on David that day? It defies logic. I believe that faith is fulfilled at the intersection between our trust in God and God's divine plan. We have to place our trust in God, but God also moves on God's timeline. And when we're at that intersection, Simeon is at that intersection when he sees the Christ. I have seen the fulfillment. It's the intersection between his belief that the Christ is coming and God's delivery of that promise of Jesus. And here's the big one. Faith is only viewed as heroic when it's fulfilled. Until then, it's often ridiculed, sometimes even by those inside the faith. You think Noah had family members who teased? How do you think David's brothers felt about seeing him walk across the field into battle? You think everybody was quick to say Paul should join the body of the apostles? No. Faith is viewed as heroic only when it's fulfilled. Wow, what a great job you did trusting God, because we all knew you were going to be squashed like a bug. Until then, it's usually ridiculed, sometimes even by those who are also on the inside. That's when you have to stand the strongest. But when we need the faith to move among us, we need to stand beside the faithful. And how many of you have had a moment in life where you had to stand beside someone whose faith was unshakable and you were encouraged because you knew who to stand by? It's a powerful thing.